how did you get the leap of faith that okay, software is what
There were all the signs were there that I didn't really want to do this. Why am I doing this if I don't want to do it? There are a lot of different ways of debugging as well. Hands down, software engineering is not for you because
and how to put in more sometimes when it is required. Can you introduce yourself about your journey or how did you get started?
Sure. Thanks, buddy. So I'm a senior engineering manager at Squat Stack, and I've been here about 1.5 years. And before this, I was in Poshmark as an engineering manager, and I was in Poshmark for about 7 years before I quit.
You were a civil engineer, you prepped up yourself in software world, and then you also happened to join a product company, which is again coming from a non-tech background can be maybe a challenging thing,
Yeah.
but it cannot be also because it all depends on your preparation.
Yeah.
And this is a place where it's all open-ended. You don't have to rely on one source of content. You can just go to internet, you can
Yeah.
learn, and you can pick up things.
Yes.
But then how did you get the leap of faith that okay, software is what
Yeah.
so once you entered, you start doing it.
Yeah.
What there are things like mishaps keep happening.
Correct.
Didn't you? Because when I code
Yeah.
and sometimes I cannot break through a problem
Yeah.
or a solution, I feel, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Am I meant to do this?
Yes. You basically feel the impostor syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So that's
So I'm from the software world,
Yeah.
and I still get it sometimes.
Correct.
But how do you handle that? I am sure you would have got those kinds of things when you're
Yes.
working in Poshmark.
Yes.
So how would you handle that time?
Yes. I think it's a very relevant question. See, as engineers, right, or as any profession, we always deal with something called the imposter syndrome, right? Which is, I don't know any of this, right? Like they're gonna find out, and they're, maybe I'm not cut out for this, right? Maybe I'm not good enough, right? Of course, I'm not good enough is what you would feel, right? So that happens, believe it or not, with everyone. Even if it is like you said yourself, right? You confess that you're a software engineer and used to felt it. I was feeling it every day, right? The challenge is how do you get comfortable with it over time, right? And you go from a point of, so it's also about expanding your comfort zone. Getting out of your comfort zone is the first step, which is where that leap of faith happened, right? Where there were all the signs were there that I didn't really want to do this. Why am I doing this if I don't want to do it? The construction gig, right? And why should I let that define the first few years of my career? And really did not have anything charted out that way, right? So it was very new for me, and it was very exciting in that way.
Okay.
So hearing my seniors who were also doing this, in the sense they were all software engineers, they were computer science grads, but looking at the kind of amazing things they were doing, people in Bangalore, and those startups like PayPal at that point, 2015, 2016 was pretty. All the startups are sort of coming out of their primordial soup at that point, right? They still hadn't figured it out, all of it. So it was a pretty exciting time that way. And of course, India had that advantage because India, first of all, had a large English-speaking population, which is actually, if you think about it, is very important too.
Yeah.
Because if you're working cross-functionally across continents, you need to speak the same language, otherwise there'll be a problem. And then also very young, passionate sort of individuals, very young country it was. So that is what sort of made me feel that I'm good for it. I'll definitely have to learn the ropes as I get into the job, right? So what I felt was being curious, I think, is the most important aspect that you can take away, right? Like if you're always curious and if you feel you can do it, you'll actually end up doing it. For me, it was also, as a 21, 22-year-old, money is also a very big motivator, right? So of course, there's a huge difference between what construction was offering versus what this was offering. So that also motivated me. And
so the software,
yeah.
thing which you are working on was paying you much better than your engineering
A lot
or
better.
civil engineering work you were doing?
Yes,
Okay.
maybe. So to put in factors, maybe 3x of what I was doing.
3x.
3x.
Okay, that's a good motivation.
Yeah.
At least at that age.
Yeah, and that says a lot about construction as well as software, right? So you compare. So that also was a motivator, because of course you want to have disposable income by when you're when you're young. So all of that pushed me. All of those factors really pushed me to see what I can achieve in this field. And so I went on my own prep, and I really could relate to the preparation I was doing, because it was all unstructured. And that is the first lesson, which is how do you deal with ambiguity? I think is the most important takeaway for being a software engineer, right? You'll always have to deal with ambiguity. More so as you grow up the ladder. As an engineering manager, I had to deal with a lot more ambiguity, because there's people management, there's software, there's the entire process, there's cross-functional teams. So nothing is really charted out as you go up the ladder. So that is the first thing. The second important thing that you need to carry here is patience, because you would have to sit with a piece of code for hours, right? And at that point, there was no chat GPT at that point, right? So it was all going to Stack Overflow, hoping, praying.
And also like searching what you are looking for is also a big deal that time.
It is a big deal.
Yeah, it's just not how do you search is also very important in Google, because
Yes.
your problem may not be a common problem, or you have to figure out a way that okay, this should have been a common problem.
Yes.
Let me phrase it in that way so that I can get a clear answer.
Yes.
Right. So these
Yes.
things are a big deal at
Yes.
that time.
They are a big deal at that time, and as well as today, right? So today you can probably paste it into ChatGPT and see what it throws out as the error, and then maybe go on from there. During that time, it was just praying that someone else also had the same problem at some point, so there was a Stack Overflow link to it, or just brushing up on your Google prompting skills, so that you can get to the right answer, and again being patient, right? Because see, when everything goes well, it's fine, right? You'll feel that flow of momentum, that okay, I'm able to do problem A, problem B, problem C, and I'm able to switch it together. The problem happens when you're at, let's say, problem number D, and there's some sort of a bug, and that takes away like hours of your time. And mind you, there's always the clock ticking, because you always have. So when you're starting off as a software engineer, you'll always have deadlines that you'll have to meet. You're an individual contributor, so you're on your own time. And then also there's people who are managing you, so they are responsible for you, or they're responsible for that particular piece to be delivered. So, and I was also at a place where I didn't have a lot of basics covered, right? So I did not have computer science fundamentals. So it was difficult for me in a sense. I had to spend weekends, right, upskilling myself, because I had to work harder than the others that are there, because it was a bit more difficult for me. And I had come into this job, right, and I had to prove my point. I had to prove not to everyone else, but to myself as well, that I will be able to sort of make a career out of it, right? So that took me some time, and that took a lot of effort. And I remember optimizing my weekends, right? I would say no intentionally to a lot of people, right, that I'll not be able to make it. And yeah, it does impact you in that way. So I think patience and sort of dealing with ambiguity are the most important things when it comes to software engineering when you're starting out. And if you have those two skills, then it doesn't matter if you have CS degree, or if you have a civil engineering degree, or if you have a mechanical degree. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't even matter if you have a degree or not, right? Exactly. So to quote Elon Musk, he says, I don't look at degrees, I just look at what you've done, right? So that. And then also was nice was comparing, right? So comparing and contrasting. So 2015 February, I was basically looking at rocks, right? Which is when I was in the construction company. Yeah. And then 2016 March, I had my first trip to US. I was meeting my team there. I was basically playing Holi with a lot of,
Gora friends.
Gora friends. Gora and Gori friends. So it was amazing. So if you compare and contrast, like I was living the life. Like I really did not want to mess this up, right? And I wanted to, devote as much time as I could, as much effort as I could. So that motivated me as well. And of course, money is a big motivator. So I think if you're able to get all of these things right, then there is a future for you in any field, but software in particular, because you're dealing with code and code might not cooperate, right? It doesn't care, right? People might care. So if you deal with people every day, you can get them to do something, which also is when we'll talk about engineering management as well, right? In the future, but with code, it is ruthless. It will not cooperate. So if let's say something goes wrong, then you have to be able to debug things. So I think debugging is a big problem in itself. It's an attitude.
It's an attitude.
It is an attitude. Yeah, yeah.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah, it is because it's basically the entire ambiguity, right? How do you in a structured way solve a problem is what comes to fore when you're doing debugging. So yeah, that is one thing.
As you rightly said, debugging is an attitude. I think it's very important to have that kind of mindset to deal with debugging and have that attitude to move as a software engineer.
Yeah.
I would like to know what are the top skills a software engineer should have that will help them to deal with imposter syndrome.
Nice. Yeah, it's a very good question. See, Kamlesh, basically, when I said debugging is an attitude / mindset, right? What I meant by that is, like you rightly pointed out, it's an imposter syndrome which kicks in. And the way it works is that we cultivate a mindset of thinking negatively. And the result of that is your imposter syndrome. So think through from a first principles perspective. If you go to the root of the problem is not the code, right?
Yeah.
The problem is your mindset towards the code or towards the problem that has happened, right? So let's say something is not working and you've gone into territory that you don't really know about. Because debugging is actually also an art of going deep. You'll have to go deep to figure out what the problem is. Whether you're looking at logs or you're looking at breakpoint debugging, right? For people who know software, they'll understand this, right? Yeah. You'll have to go structured step by step, and then deal with that. Basically, find out if that's the problem, right? So it's a lot about going step by step, looking at every little line of code and then seeing if this is causing the problem or that is not causing the problem. There are a lot of different ways of debugging as well, which we can go into later. But the most important thing that you need to bring to the game is you need to have the right mindset. Otherwise, imposter syndrome will kick in, which is you will start negatively catastrophizing your future.
Yeah.
If I'm stuck here, that means I'm not getting it delivered today. Which means tomorrow I'll have to go to my manager and tell them that I was trying this, it didn't work out. What do I do, right? And it's possible the manager is good, but that's a game of chance, right? Some managers are so helpful. Some managers won't be that kind to you, right? They have other things going on. They have other things. They have a few more problems. They have a lot more reports. So it's very circumstantial. But so that's not under your control. But what's under your control is developing that mindset early on and knowing that if you go deep enough, you will find an answer or you'll find an alternative way. And that doesn't come easy. The problem is it takes time to develop. If you quit early on, if you can't deal with this, if you can't deal with uncertainty, if you can't deal with being comfortable solving a problem, hands down software engineering is not for you because you will deal with this day in, day out, right? This code doesn't lie. A same piece of software can be written by a principal architect. Same piece of software can be written by a junior developer who's just starting out. But when they are talking about that particular piece of code, they are both talking about the same thing in different lenses.
Yeah.
A junior developer might be looking at only surface level information, whereas a principal architect might bring in their years of experience and then tell you what is happening underneath and where you should look for, right? What's good at the end of the debugging cycle is that level of satisfaction you get once you solved a problem, right?
Yeah.
So if you seek that and you know that this will happen, right? And getting comfortable with it and knowing that at the end of the tunnel there's a light, and that will bring a lot of satisfaction. I think that is what job satisfaction is all about when it comes to a software engineer, right? It's not really about that promotion. If you think about it,
Yeah.
it's more about I was able to solve this problem.
Yeah, it just immediately kicks. So once you solve it, it immediately kicks you and gives you that charm that you are like,
Yes.
like today that I've conquered the world.
I've conquered the world. Exactly. I've conquered the world. And you're sort of, there's an adrenaline rush. There's a lot of chemicals that are at play here, right? And if you're able to, over time, if you reflect on this, the problem is most people don't reflect. If you're able to reflect on what happened, what was your mindset going in, and how did you solve this? And then you compare and contrast between your earlier stance, which was more naive, more egoistic, where you were negatively thinking about the outcome, catastrophizing that my manager is going to screw me, if going to fire me, I'll not be able to make the deadline, the entire sprint would be at stake. Then you understand that it was not really that big of a problem. It was just about solving that particular piece of code, being mindful about it, and then taking your time, and then doing your own research, and then developing that side of you. Not a lot of people talk about debugging, but debugging is a big part of software engineering. And there's one more thing which I heard somewhere, and I think I have practiced to some extent, is whatever is your biggest problem today, right? Let's say you're dealing with some software, let's say you're developing, architecting an application, and you've hit a roadblock of sorts, right? Write that down. Like, this is a very big problem for me, and I don't think, things will go well if I'm not able to figure this out, right? Like, there are a lot of bad things would happen. And then whether you solve this or not, maybe 3 weeks after, come back and look at that problem and see if it indeed manifested into something so catastrophic, which you'd written it down, right?
Yeah.
10 times out of 10, you will find that you were just catastrophizing, and it was not true. Yeah. It was just your mind playing games with you. Yeah. Because as a hunter and gatherer of hundreds of millions of years of evolution, we have an intrinsic instinct to care for ourselves, right? To look after ourselves, because there's someone out to get us. Yeah. So that part of our ego, that part of our mindset, does serve us well when fear brings out results, right? Sometimes. Yes. But in this setting, it can just cost you, because
it can just cost you and getting nowhere.
Getting nowhere, right? And that's the long and short.
So I would say one skill which I feel very good in debugging as an attitude picture is like how you can deal with panic instead of being panic. Set aside your panic attacks, and just deal with the problem. Write it down, and if you can't solve it, if you have a senior, talk to him. If not, have a short break. And rethink after a short break. What will happen is your mind becomes calm. Yes. You are not catastrophizing. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but the whole idea is you're not panicking in that moment, and then you get to see in a calmer way to that problem, and you solve it. Yes. So, and once you solve it, you felt like I was dealing with shit. Now I have done that.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that is really powerful. Once you hit that target complete, that dopamine rushes in, and
correct,
you feel so much.
You feel satisfaction.
You feel so much satisfied with your job, with your role, with your task, and with whatever you're doing, and you get that idea that this is what I was meant to do.
Correct. You do get that, and always think about that, right? Whenever the next time when you're having this, when you're in a situation, think about all the hundreds of problems that you solved in the past, and then say, be mindful, be in the present, and say to yourself that ho hi jayega, right? It's happened 100 times before, it'll happen again. There's no difference.
Okay. Cool. I think that was great. Let's shift a bit more on your role as software engineer has always evolved when you were in Poshmark.
Yeah.
How did that evolution happen?
Yeah.
How did you step up, year by year, or what really worked for you?
Nice. Yeah, I think reflecting on it, it's been quite a journey, and I've had the good fortune of meeting very nice people, people who helped me there, right? Helped me navigate this entire, navigate my career, helped set benchmarks for what I have to stand up to, helped set growth areas for me that I can work on. I think what really sort of, if you have to summarize that, is just bringing that curiosity to the game. Always being curious, not just being satisfied with surface level understanding, but going deep and then being comfortable going as deep as you can. And then sort of dealing with problems that can range from people problems, dealing with problems that can be just pure code problems, problems with your situation. Sometimes your situation might change. You might have to attend a few things which need your attention, and you don't have the time. So I think dealing with problems is a part of every software engineer's career, but more so here because it's very technical. Not You can't talk about these problems to someone else, right? So let's say, for example, if you're in some other role which is very people heavy, you can get advice from anywhere. You can get advice from your parents, you can get advice from your close friends. The problem with software problems is that you really can't, unless you have a really good friend who's also in the same boat as you, who can look at your code and then tell you something, who can do your code review, informal code review. You really don't have anyone else. You're literally on your own. So being on your own, being comfortable on your own, I think is very important. But I think going back to your question in terms of
And I think that is one thing I really look here in your answer is being on your own is really important.
Yeah.
Being on your own contributor,
yes,
if you have if you are given just the problem,
yes,
and if you're bringing that problem out with a solution,
yes,
and moreover if it is implemented in good number of hours,
yes,
that's a good for people to watch out at you. Hey, you're
yes,
doing a great job.
yes,
And that, I think that is what you want, or that is what at least I feel,
yes.
at least one way to say to step up your game.
To step up your game. The other things that you can do, right, and it's just purely from my experience, is you really need to master the art of public speaking.
Public speaking.
Yes, yes, as a software
Okay.
engineer, because you're not just writing code, you're communicating about it. You are presenting a demo. You are talking about, you're giving tech talks, right? And you're developing that side of you where you're coming across as a developer advocate, right? Or you're coming across as someone who can, you know, convey technical things in a non-technical way to a non-technical audience.
Okay.
Because when you're dealing with software, you're not just dealing with software engineers, other software engineers and the code, but then you might also be dealing with product managers, right? Now, product managers can be technical, but not a lot of them are technical to the extent that you would like them to be. And that is completely fine, right? Their focus is something else. So if they ask you about where you are, right, then you have to know when to dial down on the technicality and then dial up on explaining in simple words where you are with a particular problem, and also being able to really give good demos. So that's where the Art of Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie, I think, is a very good book to go through, right?
Can you say that again?
The Art of Speaking by Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
And that what that lets you do is you can give really good demos. And if you give good demos, you're not just influencing your peers, but then you're also setting, basically your juniors are looking up to you. And you can then do mentorship for your juniors only if you are able to deal with these people problems. So getting that side of you built over time just helps you navigate that really well, the entire people aspect of it really well.
Yeah. So basically, you're trying to say a soft skill plays an important role, a very important role. Obviously, soft skills can be public speaking, the art of demoing, the art to say what to say when, and how to deliver what.
Yes.
and how to put in more sometimes when it is required.
Yes.
You should not be doing always, but
Yes.
yeah.
Correct. And even if you're, let's say, in a services company, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably giving a presentation to a client,
Yeah.
right? And it might not always be you, but it can be you, right? If you, let's say, develop that side of your persona of being able to be confident on when giving a demo virtually or on stage,
Yeah.
then you will find your job even more satisfying, because this is so the level of satisfaction increases even more
as these things come
as
into
these
play.
things happen, right? So debugging is one. Let's say that was level one. Then being able to give demos to a lot of people, hosting tech talks, hosting meetups in your office, helps you give that the second level of satisfaction, where you then are looked up upon by others around you, by your peers, by your manager, as well as your juniors.
Yeah.
And then also, this is very important when it comes to interviewing.
Yeah. Good
Right?
point. If you like this content and got to learn much more on this, join me in our journey at Code to Lounge, where we talk about engineering, coding, programming, and life. Let's debug life together at Code to Lounge.